Welcome to Uniquely Female Troubles. My name is Leslie Wells. I decided to do a part two of the video that I made the other day, and I'm going to release them together. And the reason I decided to do that is because, for one, I thought of another example of me keeping secrets and not asking for help that happened when I was only 10 years old, but it turned out really good. And also, I don't know if I emphasized enough how important it is for people to not do this. I mean, I think you could emphasize it for 10 hours and never say it enough. But anyway, what happened when I was 10 is we had moved to another town and I was starting school, 5th grade. And I didn't have any friends in my class. And what was sad was we had moved there in the summer. My parents were always really good about when we did move, we moved in the summer. So we almost never had to start a new school in the middle of the year. There were a couple of times, but especially for my brother and sisters who are a lot younger than me. But so there were two girls that were actually in that classroom that I hung out with all summer. And I was so happy that I had two friends that were going to be in the same class as I was, because that's not that common when you move. Well, turns out they decided that they weren't going to be my friends. And they just acted like, who are you? I mean, I don't know if they acknowledged that they knew me or if they pretended they didn't know me, but they definitely didn't act like they were my friends, in spite of the fact that we had been playing at each other's houses and with each other for at least a month. So, and then they were at the bus stop with me, and there was a girl there who was quite a bit bigger than the rest of us. I found out later she was 13, and she was only in the 5th grade. The rest of us were 10. And I don't know what was going on with that, but she was a lot bigger than us, and she was a bully big time. And as soon as she heard my name, she laughed and called me a Leslie. And she taught everyone at the bus stop, in the bus, and pretty much a lot of the kids at school all started calling me Leslie. I had no idea what that meant. I could tell it was something bad. And I bet a lot of the 10-year-olds who were calling me that had absolutely no idea what it meant either. But this 13-year-old, she probably had a lot of street smarts, but I don't know why she was in with 10-year-olds. And I've often wondered about her. I mean, most bullies have a pretty bad life. I know that now, but I didn't at the time. So when I came home, I asked my mom what a Leslie was. She told me. So anyway, I realized it didn't take long at all for me to realize that even though I knew these two girls, that they were not my friends anymore or ever. Maybe they never have been. Maybe it's just something convenient. I don't know, really. I can't psychoanalyze them. But anyway, eventually I made another friend. I think her name was Angela. And we were sitting right next to each other in the classroom. And we were talking, and it felt so good to finally have a friend. When I think back, I think about all the times we moved, and when you go to a new place or a new school or a class but you don't know anybody, and then you finally make a friend, it feels like kind of like finding a life raft. That's how it felt for me, like finding a life raft to keep from drowning. And I don't know if that's a normal feeling. I don't think 10-year-olds are all that good at being independent. But anyway, I'd made this friend. And one day, our teacher, who actually was my first male teacher, and you know what? He was the best teacher I ever had by a long shot. His name was Mr. Miller. That's his real name. And because I have nothing but good things to say about him. Anyway, so he decided, instead of sitting in rows, that he wanted us to sit in pods. So we would, he rearranged all the desks and everything. And before I knew it, I was sitting on one end of the room and Angela was sitting on the other end of the room. And it felt just like, it's like, I had a life raft, and then I lost my life raft because I didn't know, wasn't friends with anybody else in the pod that I was in. And as hard as I tried to make it not happen, I started crying. So I had a book with me. It was actually the book True Grit. It's really funny what details we remember. But it was the book True Grit because I always had a book with me because I loved reading even back. As soon as I learned, I loved reading even before I knew how to read. I wanted my parents to read to me, and also I loved just looking through books. And then as soon as I learned how to read, I loved to read myself. Anyway, I always had a book with me, and so I took the book and opened it up and kind of like buried my face in it because I didn't want anybody to see that I was crying. But this girl that was sitting next to me, she's like, "Is that book really sad?" And I just shook my head like, "Go away," and so then she goes, "Mr. Miller, Leslie is crying." And I wanted to just take the book and hit her on the head with it. But that was actually the best thing that could have happened. See, I was trying to hide. That was a pattern that, I don't know when it started. Maybe it started when my uncle started R-wording me when I was 5. I have a feeling that's when it started. And it's a very unhealthy pattern. Anyway, so Mr. Miller came over and he actually knelt down beside my desk and he asked me why I was crying. And I was like, "I want to be by Angela." And he's like, "Oh, you want to be by Angela?" And I was still sitting at my desk. It's a one-piece thing. And he actually gave me a ride in my desk all the way across the room and plopped me right down next to Angela's desk. And I was just so happy. It felt so good. But yet, if that girl hadn't announced to the whole class and to our teacher that I was crying, so obviously something was wrong, then I would have stayed in the pod where I was. It was almost like when something bad happened, it was just like inevitable that it would not change. And I really wonder, it all goes back to all the trauma. I'd had a lot of trauma in my life by the time I was 10, unfortunately. But anyway, so that is an instance. It goes all the way back to when I was 10 years old, where I tried to keep a secret when not keeping the secret fixed the problem. And if I wouldn't have kept all the secrets that I kept, then a lot of problems would either have been fixed right away or very much sooner than when they were fixed. And things wouldn't have dragged out over 2 decades, like with the marriage, and almost 3 decades with the cult. And the whole point of this part of the video is, please do not do this to yourself. Do not keep secrets. There are people, almost everybody on this earth has somebody who cares about them and loves them. And I'm very sad about the fact that that isn't 100% of the people on earth. I wish it was, but I know the truth is that it isn't 100%. But it's very, I don't know what the number is. I hope it's very close to 100. And if you don't have anybody, there are hotlines. There's 911. There are all kinds of resources available that don't cost money. There are shelters. There are things out there, at least in the U.S. I don't know. In some countries, probably more. Some countries, probably less. But there are resources out there and people, hopefully, individuals who love you that will help you. But if they don't know what's wrong, if they don't know what's going on in your life because you're keeping it a secret, either because you feel like you're too strong to tell anybody, you feel like you're too weak to tell anybody, you feel like you're too embarrassed to tell anybody, you feel like you're too ashamed to tell anybody, for whatever reason, even if you have no idea why you won't tell anybody, try to break through that barrier. Be real. Be sincere. Be honest. When I started therapy, I didn't even know who I was, much less the truth about my life. I didn't know I was in a cult. I knew I was in a terrible marriage that was abusive. Yeah, I did know that. I didn't even know, I'd repressed the memories of what my uncle did to me starting when I was 5. I did know what my grandmother's second husband did to me starting, I don't know, whenever she married him when I was either 7 or 8 or whatever. But so much of my humanity and who I really was buried under so many layers of this. I don't even know what you call it. I'm sure a psychologist knows the right word for it, but I don't. Please break through that barrier. Tell somebody the truth. Tell them what's happening to you. Because you know what? Even if nobody in your family cares enough to help you and you don't have any friends that care enough to help you, there are complete strangers that care enough to help you. There's lots of people in the helping professions like doctors, nurses, social workers, therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, people who work in women's shelters, people who are dispatchers for 911. There's all kinds of like hotlines. Even there's things called warm lines that are for people who aren't like about to kill themselves. I mean, about to self-exit this earth. Thank you, YouTube, for your dumb rules. And so please just reach out to somebody. You don't have to live behind a wall of shame and secrets that nobody else can see through. There were times that I thought people did know what was happening to me, especially when I was a kid, but they didn't. And that was a lot of different things combined, but the bad things that did happen to me, I didn't tell anybody. The things that I didn't repress, I mean, for instance, when my step-grandfather, who was my grandmother's second husband, found me alone in the basement, he picked me up and he stuck his tongue down my throat as far as he could get it. And when he let me go, I ran up the stairs and I ran right past my grandma, right past my dad, right past my mom, and locked myself in the bathroom. Why did I do that? I don't know the answer to that question. I really don't. But it was already an entrenched pattern with me that bad things happen to me, and I have to try to handle them on my own. And I was a kid. I did not know how to handle these things. I had no idea how to handle these things. I needed adult help. And I'm not blaming myself, but I did my part in making sure I didn't get any adult help. And I'm sad about that. And, now that all these years later, before my dad died, he knew about it. My mom knows about it. And, they feel bad about it too. And they have no reason to feel guilty, because if you don't know something, you don't know it. And I don't know. I just want to urge everyone, anybody who hears my voice, please don't hide behind a wall of secrets and shame and embarrassment. And how did I end up in this horrible situation? What's wrong with me? You know what? There's nothing wrong with you. The person that has something wrong with them is the person that's abusing you. And we all have issues. We all have things we need to work on. But the fact that someone else is abusing us doesn't make us bad people. And it doesn't mean we have anything to be ashamed of. It means we need help to get away from the bad person. The bad person is the abuser, not the person who's getting abused. So thank you very much for listening to part 2 of this. And please leave me a comment. I would love to hear what you guys think. I want to turn this from a monologue to a dialogue, as I've said many times. And I love to hear what you guys think. And give it a thumbs up if you feel like it deserves one. And please subscribe to my channel if you would like to be, and set the notifications so you get notified every time I release a video if you would like to be notified of that. So thank you very much and have a very good day.